Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Fisher. I'm with McCormick Systems. Thank you all for joining me for today's webinar. Today's topic is estimate in half the time with McCormick. Before I get into the presentation today, I do want to just point out that today's focus is going to be more of a general walkthrough. Of course, this is condensed. We do offer online demonstrations where where we connect with you and, talk about your company and ours. We make sure it's a good fit and we talk you through the whole program. We drill down, we answer questions as they come up. Today is going to be more of a condensed, shortened overview. I won't be able to hear any of you. There is a section in the go to webinar taskbar where you can type in questions, and I will be looking at that and addressing any questions that come my way. So please feel free to type them in. But again, just so you all know, we have a big turnout today, which is great. It does look like we have some McCormick users, some non-McCormick users, some with software, without software. But today's we're really the audience we're really targeting today is going to be someone who doesn't have McCormick, someone who maybe doesn't have estimating, maybe they're using Excel or more manual methods, or maybe they're using another platform and they're just looking for a little exposure to McCormick. Now, with that being said, there's 4 of us sales guys here that do these webinars, and we always covering different topics. And with that being said, there's many recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. Some are going to be more geared towards showing off features and shortcuts, and so just keep that in mind. Yeah, so again, going back to today's topic, estimating in half the time, McCormick has been proven to be up to 75% faster than manual methods. If you're printing out plans, if you're doing takeoffs on paper, and then trying to determine material, come up with a material list and determine material costs and labor hours from there, even if you're using Excel, that's very, very time consuming. Whereas in McCormick, and also, by the way, there's also systems out there that might do just takeoff. They might just help you with the takeoff side. So they're just going to help you get counts and measurements on a digital plan. There's systems out there that will just help you on the estimating side. So they'll replace Excel, and you'll have the ability to manage a database of material, items and assemblies. But they don't have a takeoff component. There's also systems out there that do estimating and takeoff, but it's still 2 separate products. So one of the first points I want to make here, one of the bullets that I want to touch on to start, is what we mean by all-in-one estimating and takeoff. We're one program for estimating and takeoff. We handle change orders as well, all within one program. So rather than one program for takeoff, one program for estimating, it's more streamlined. There's no setup required in regards to getting the takeoff program to talk with the estimating program. There's no linking or merging information or pushing information from one system to the other. So that in its own right makes McCormick a lot more efficient, a lot more streamlined than a lot of the other options out there. But outside of that, we have a ton of takeoff capabilities, automated features and shortcuts to really speed up the takeoff process. That's where we're going to save you a ton of time. But again, today I won't really be getting into too many of the bells and whistles. I'm going to kind of take you through a general walkthrough, and there's some things I want to touch on today. So yeah, with that being said, I also want to mention that we do offer 2 levels of the software. We have a product called McCormick, which is for a smaller company. You're bidding on smaller projects. We have also McCormick Pro. So that's what I have opened up today. Both systems are essentially like they use the same 5-step process. They use the same database. They use the same takeoff system. So, they're both all-in-one estimating and Takeoff. They can both get you the same numbers in the end, but the Pro has much more features and bells and whistles. More detailed reports, bigger breakdowns, things that you would want on larger projects. Also, we offer two different database types. We have an electrical database, which is really all-inclusive, low voltage to high voltage, everything in between, residential, commercial, industrial, and so on. We also have a plumbing and mechanical database. So our plumbing mechanical database is one database, and then the electrical is a second database. So we do have companies that do all three trades or two trades, and of course we have companies that just focus on one. But today I do have McCormick Pro loaded up. I do have the electrical database loaded up. Now, what you're looking at here is what we call the job screen. Really, the only point I want to make here is it is a customizable dashboard. So you would customize this to keep your jobs organized however you want. And then within the folders, the details are customizable as well. So that they're used for sorting and filtering and searching. If I just wanted to see my jobs that are the jobs in this folder that we're currently estimating, I could either click on the job status button to filter that way, or I could start typing in the description at the top. Obviously you can pull up jobs by name and number here. So again, just want to point out that there is a customizable dashboard. There's no data limitations in McCormick, no limit on how many jobs you can create and manage in the system at one time, no limit on how many drawings you can attach to each job. Now, this job here is in process. I'm going to show you the details on it. We work through a 5-step process. So again, today I'm just going to touch on each of the 5 steps. This first step here is where we name the job, and then the details are optional. Phone numbers, emails, addresses. All we really need is a job name to get started. If you do type in details, they will populate automatically into reports, into proposals at the end. At the bottom, there's a tab here to add plans. So again, I'm in step 1. Name the job, type in details if you want to. If you have drawings, you're going to add them here. On the left side, just showing as an example that you can organize sheets into folders. These are just a few example folders I've already added. To add a new folder, you just right-click and you click on Add Folder. So on a larger project, you may want to organize sheets somehow so you're not dealing with one giant list of drawings. Also, if you're receiving revisions and changes, it can help keep you organized. To add the actual drawings, we hit the Add Drawings button here. This just opens up my Computer File Explorer. So now I can select a file or several files if need be, hit Open. McCormick brings the plans into a preview mode. And now I can preview the sheets and choose the sheets that I want. So sometimes probably most of the time, you'll receive a single file and it's a combined set of drawings. There could be hundreds of sheets. So that's fine. Whatever the case may be, you can select the single file. We'll automatically separate it into individual sheets every time. And then you can zoom in here and choose the sheets that you want. Maybe I just want these 2 sheets here. I could use the Import Selected option. Otherwise, there is an Import All option. Okay, the drawings are now attached to the job in McCormick. They're copied in. Again, no data limitations. We do accept any type of image file. We automatically recognize file names, file formatting, thumbnails even. Of course, you can change anything you want in McCormick after the fact. And I do want to mention, we do have an OCR scanning feature where I can ask McCormick to scan the drawings and name the sheets for me based on a title block. So that's a pretty neat feature we have. Now, the second step I'm just going to touch on here. This is an example here in terms of a breakout structure. This is, in this example job, I'm using all 5 columns. Now, keep in mind that on some jobs, you might only use 1 column or 2 or maybe 3. It really depends on the job. So in this example, I'm providing more than 1 price. Each label here represents a separate price. So we're just showing that, within this one job folder, I can create and manage more than 1 price. In fact, there's no limit. Every time I type in a label, it'll give me an option to add another label, either now or later on. So, alternate 3. This is also where I could start a change order. So if I'm awarded this project and 6 months later I come back to work on a change order, the change order would start with a label. So again, in McCormick Pro, there's no limit. Within this one job folder, I could have a base bid, 100 options, 1,000 change orders. Obviously that's, I'm being dramatic, excessive there, but you get the point. Beyond that, these are the breakouts I want for the job. Systems are pretty common. Areas are pretty common. What I've done here is I've done system breakdowns within levels within buildings. So this is the biggest breakout. I want to see each building by itself, but I also want to see each floor separate within each building. I also want to see each system separate. So in this example, I could look at lighting by itself for the entire job. I could also look at lighting just in building B. I could also look at lighting just in floor 1 for building A. So, again, this is up to you on a job-to-job basis. These types of breakouts are very useful. If something changes in one of these sections of the job, it's much easier to address the change when we've got a breakout. Certainly when we start doing the work, these types of breakouts will be very useful, because again, if we're starting work on building A underground tomorrow, I've got a material list just for building A underground. I could look at, I could look at lighting for the whole job. I could look at lighting just for building A floor 1. So those types of breakouts become very useful when there's, especially when there's changes later on, or once we start doing the job. Now, in the takeoff portion here, step 3, this is where we account for the material. Now, I have drawings attached to the job. So I attached them in the first step here. So I would launch those from the ribbon here in Takeoff. If I have a separate monitor, I would put the plan full screen on a separate monitor. So that's highly recommended. I can only show one screen at a time today, so I'm just going to toggle between the two screens, between the estimating screen and the on-screen Takeoff. Now, let's talk about the estimating screen for a moment. The first thing I like to point out are the labels that we just talked about in the previous step. They're now at the top of the Takeoff screen as a dropdown. So, and then down here at the bottom, we call this the audit trail. It's like our receipt in Takeoff. It's a record. This is obviously material that I've already taken off, but it's specific to these, to building A floor 1 power. If I switch to, say, building B, you'll see I have a fresh audit trail here. It's empty. I haven't done any Takeoff here yet. So that's how the labels carry over to Takeoff. Now we just have to pay attention to where we're doing the Takeoff. Now, I also want to point out that if you don't have digital plans for some reason, so maybe I did a job walk or something along, or maybe I'm coming back to do a small change order. I don't necessarily want to do it on the digital drawings on screen. One way to get material into the audit trail is what we call manual entry Takeoff. And for that, all you do is select the part in the database, type in a quantity, and hit enter. So let me show you a sample of that. This is the database window here. I'm in the assemblies database. This is the menu. We use the menu to drive the database. Now, in the electrical database, there's about 30,000 assemblies in here. On the item side, there's about 45,000 items. So obviously, you're not going to scroll through a list of thousands of parts. But let's look at an assembly. I'm going to go with the device, standard grade, receptacle. So 3 or 4 clicks, the menu takes me to a list. And so I'm looking at a list of standard grade receptacle assemblies. I'm going to choose the 20 amp duplex. This is the assembly I want. Now I'm going to open up this side window. It's showing all of the items that make up the assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again an example of manual entry Takeoff. I'm going to say I want 20 of these, and I'm going to hit enter. So again, that's one way to do it. I got 20 duplex 20 amp assemblies. Now, the other way to do it is to click on the plan, right? So I have the drawing open. I'm going to switch to a different assembly. I'm going to use this 15 amp duplex here. But and when I open up the drawing here, I'm going to choose a sheet real quick, this first sheet here, and I'm going to set a scale on it. We're not going to let you do any Takeoff till you set a scale. And if you look closely in the bottom left-hand corner of the drawing, you should see that the assembly 15,958 duplex standard is active on the drawing. So the assembly that I selected here is automatically active and ready to be taken off here. So once again, one of the first points I wanted to make was what we mean. This is what we mean by all-in-one. As soon as I select a part in my estimating program, it's ready to be taken off on the drawing. So with each click, I'm leaving a mark behind. And by the way, I can turn this legend on, which is kind of cool. It's just a tool here in the ribbon. opens up in the top left-hand corner by default. I can move it, I can resize it, but it's very clear what's been accounted for here and what hasn't, where it's been accounted for. So really anyone looking at this can tell. But most importantly, if it's marked on the plan here, it's also recorded here by the estimating program automatically. Again, I didn't have to set up anything ahead of time. I didn't have to get a count over here and then push it into here. It's one program. So it's very, again, very streamlined, very simple. Now, the audit tool is tracking the name of the part, whether it's an item or an assembly. So A or I, these were both assemblies. Quantity, of course, we're tracking who did it, username, date and timestamp, and then how it was taken off. So M that was manually entered. So this user typed in this quantity at this time. This count came from the plan. It even, if I hover over the sheet, it even tells me what sheet it came from. Or I'm sorry, if I hover over the P, it tells me what sheet it came from. So again, I know who did this, when they did it, how they did it, and even where. If it's an assembly and I'm reviewing this later, maybe I moved off of the assembly, right? I'm doing something else, but maybe I'm reviewing this. I could also be reviewing somebody else's work. We're a true network, a true multi-user system. So whatever the case may be, if I'm looking at an assembly here and I say, okay, great, we got 10 of these outlet assemblies, what's all included with that? Well, this button here will expand the line to show the same view as when it was selected and taken off. It'll also show the total quantity of each item based on the quantity taken off. So just a lot of visibility. Okay, so that's kind of the basics in regards to Takeoff. Now, again, with today's topic being, cutting estimating time in half, I would say, once again, if you're using manual methods, we would easily cut your estimating and takeoff time in half, probably more along the lines of, I would say, 75% faster, especially if we get into like the shortcuts and the automated capabilities that we offer in Takeoff. But at the very least, even if we're using this on a basic level, I'm getting all the material I need to install all in one shot. And I'm also getting material costs in hours. Now, let me show you that. So each one of these is simply a list of items. Each one of these lines is representing an item in the items database. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go to one of them. So I'm going to hit go to. Of course, I could find it using my menu. I could find the item, but the go to just takes me to an item in the items database. So it's like a shortcut. And then I'm going to review that. So again, here I'm reviewing an assembly, which is just a group of items. Now I'm showing you the information built into this one item here. But the same information is built into each one of these. Not the same, but there's material pricing and labor hours built into each item. So this is where we really start to pick up speed. Having material pricing, labor hours built into the parts, that's already helping. And that also standardizes our bids. Makes us more accurate and consistent, but the assemblies allow us to account for the material very quickly, and we're much less likely to miss things. So, database items and assemblies, that's kind of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, behind the estimating portion of the program. Now, I do want to touch on this a bit. We do start you off with 4 levels of material cost. 6 levels of labor. This represents time. So that reads 20 hours to install 100. And then this is about 25% higher. This is about 50% higher. So again, this just represents time. At the end of the program, you'll assign your labor rates to the labor hours to determine labor cost. And then we have the 3 levels of NECA, which is a published labor unit. That's included as well. On the pricing side, so another very important component of an estimating program is managing material pricing. So I do want to explain what we start you with, and then also some of the options for managing that. We can really manage material pricing in McCormick any way that's available. It is up to you, the user. What we start you with, a brand new user, is an updated retail price on the material, and then 3 preset multipliers off of that. Price 1 is essentially our best guess at what you pay for the material based off of an average contractor discount. price 2 is about 20% higher. It might be used on a change order. So price 1 is my price. If I'm bidding a change order, if I might not want to use my best price, so in that scenario I might use price 2. So that's kind of the purpose behind having different levels, is for different scenarios like that. But again, it's kind of focusing on material pricing and different ways of managing that. So that's what we start you with. Now, once you gain access to McCormick, this database becomes your database. You can change anything you want. You can change in the database. You can make changes, any changes you want, to material pricing, to labor units, to descriptions, anything you want. This database becomes your database. You can change anything. Now, they're also in the next step. So obviously if you change it in the database, it's a permanent change from that point forward. In the next step, after we're done with Takeoff, we're going to spit out a complete list of material. We're going to show the material costs and hours associated with the parts. And in the next step, I can also make changes there. And any changes I make in the next step are just for the job. So some users will do Takeoff here, extend, and then spot check pricing in the next step. Or again, we spit out a complete list of material. Some users might just export the whole material list and send it to the supplier, job to job. So these are some ways of doing it. And then finally, there's some more automated ways of doing it. Some of our users, they get a file directly from their supplier, and it's really just a common Excel file, a list of parts with prices. We're able to update what material pricing in McCormick off of a common Excel file. So we typically key off of a UPC code. Essentially, if there's a matching UPC code in your file, it'll find the part in McCormick and update the price automatically. So that's a great way to do it. Of course, that requires the cooperation from your supplier. How often are they willing to send it, and how often are they willing to send it to you? So that's a great way to do it. If I'm doing it that way, then the pricing in my system is always as good as the last file I ran. Now, finally, we do work with all of the major pricing services. You may have heard of NetPricer and Trade Service. This is a third-party pricing service subscription. It's an add-on. Now, on the plumbing mechanical side, it's the same program, different material, different database. So, so on the so they also can use Trade Service, but they also Harrison is another option on the plumbing mechanical side. But yeah, if you have the pricing service add-on, they will update the database pricing automatically as often as you want, typically with like average market pricing. Now, on top of that, not only if I'm subscribed to a pricing service like NetPricer or Trade Service, on top of them keeping my database pricing up to date for me, in the next step, I can hit a button and get today's price from my supplier, my price from my supplier with the click of a button. So they call that the supplier link, the supplier exchange. It's like a direct connection, so that now I'm on a job-to-job basis, I'm able to get today's price from my supplier on my complete list of material. We can even, if you're doing it that way, we can even compare supplier prices side by side and cherry pick between them. So again, that happens in the next step. So lots of ways to do that. Okay, going back to I'm putting a big emphasis here on database. Now, because this is another thing that's gonna make you faster, is having a complete database and also having an easy way to navigate it. So I do want to point out, so I mentioned the completeness of the database that we start you with. I've also started to paint the picture that it is totally customizable to you. You can make this your database. You're not limited to what we give you if you don't like descriptions, and again, also the data built into the parts. If you don't like that information, it's all customizable to you. Plus, of course, you can add as much as you want to it. It's unlimited in the sense that we can add anything you want. We can even import. I mentioned we can update from Excel. We can also import material from Excel. We can also import material directly from the trade service catalog. Now, I've just only barely touched on how we use the menu to navigate. Once again, you start with a general category here. As you work through the columns, it narrows down the search. I want branch, I want EMT, I want steel set screw with the strap, I want number 12 wire. Now in the database, I'm choosing how many wires I want 3. So once again, the side window is open. Here's all the material I get. I'm getting pipe, wire, couplings, connectors, traps, screws, washers. I'm getting everything I need to install all in one shot. This assembly is built per foot. It's ready to be taken off on the plan. Okay, for linear takeoff, rather than spotting and dotting, you're drawing lines. So, it's just it's very simple. I can do a run here. I can take off a run here, change directions. We can account for vertical values, right click, give me a drop at the start, at the end, both sides. Just give me one at the end for now. It defaults to 8. Of course, I could change the default to something else. So that's a vertical measurement. Maybe this job, another job, it might be 20 feet, right? So you can, of course, change the default from 8 to whatever you want. We have an auto drop feature, so we can give you the values automatically as well. So instead of like right clicking on it afterwards. So now I'm asking for it automatically on both sides. And again, I'm really just showing basics in regards to takeoff capabilities. That's the basics. We're keeping track of the counts and measurements for you. You're pointing and clicking on an item or an assembly in your estimating program, and then you're clicking on a plan. We're recording all the counts and measurements for you. Now, there are loads of features on this side of the program that we won't be talking about today. There are shortcuts that allow me to get to materials very quickly, materials that I've already selected, materials that I use often. We have a favorites list, a hot list. We have automated capabilities like auto count. We can scan the drawing and find symbols for you. We have an automated capability called auto home runs. We can set conditions and then have McCormick take the home runs off for us. So just a lot of capabilities that will speed up the takeoff process. But once again, sort of just covering basics today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the extension piece here. Once again, this is just a quick little, exposure to how the estimating and takeoff are working together as one program, and showing you the some of the efficiencies of utilizing an estimating database of items and assemblies. And again, I touched on customizations. One other thing I actually do want to mention as well is even this menu is customizable to you, to the user. So this is how we drive the database. If I do a lot of industrial work, I might move this up to the top of the list, rather than down here in the middle or at the bottom. So you simply put the menu into setup mode, and you can reorder things. It's right here, this one right here. And you can rename things. You can also add your own custom categories. So if you're adding like new items or assemblies, you can add your own custom categories. So again, even the way that we drive the database is customizable to the user. So that helps. Especially if we have multiple people using this, that helps. Any changes I make it easier on everybody in terms of getting to the materials, very quickly and efficiently. Now, let me show you the extension. Extension is a result of everything we did in Takeoff. So by default, the first time you come here, we just spit out one big list of material. It's one combined list of material. In other words, this is every single piece of material I need for the job. And again, it's itemized down to the wire nuts, screws, and washers. Now, my system defaults to price one and bid labor. So your system can be, if you remember, when I was in Takeoff, I reviewed an item with you, and I showed the material pricing and the hours built in, and I showed there's multiple levels. So I didn't pick anything in Takeoff. I was just accounting for material. My system by default extended the job by price, one, and bid labor. But if I wanted something other than price, one, and bid labor, I can choose that here. So here, maybe I want price, one, and NICA one instead, or price, two, and change order, whatever. There's also, like, if I just wanted to see a material list only or assembly reports, there's a lot of different options here. I'm just going to stick with the price, one, and bid labor. Now, this is an opportunity to review and to make changes if necessary before we move on to the fifth and final step. So, for example, some users I mentioned might spot check some prices here. Okay, any changes I make here will turn bold, showing I addressed it, and then it recalculates based on the change. So, of course, the way this reads, this is the material description. This is the quantity of the material. Quantity times price gives me extended price. Quantity times bid labor gives me extended labor. All right, so that's the total material cost at the top. That's the total hours. Now, of course, we can see total material cost, total hours per line item. And once again, this is an opportunity to review and to make any changes. I can change prices, labor units, total hours. I can change quantities, anything I want here. This is also where I can view a lot of breakout reports, but again, I mean, the breakouts are going to be more useful if we're making changes, if we're starting the job. For the purposes of today's short demonstration, I'm going to just move on to the fifth and final step here and show you how we wrap up the job. Now, I do want to show you, though, I might as well, while we're here, I'll flip to the labels tab if you remember step 2, those labels are tied to the report. So this is where I can check and uncheck labels and combine labels, separate them to view the breakouts however I want. And again, there's many reasons why we want breakouts, and sometimes it's for breakout pricing. By the way, if we're providing breakout pricing, that's another purpose for labeling. So of course McCormick handles breakout prices very well. We can provide 100 breakout prices on the base bid if need be. But again, for the purposes of today's quick and simple overview, I'm going to just go ahead and push my total material cost, total hours for the base bid to the fifth and final step. So all you do is hit send a summary. What we're going to do is we're going to not only send the material costs and hours to the bid summary, but we're going to lock this report and unlink it from the database. So it's not going to change unless I want it to. Moving on to step 5, we assume you're done. You don't want that extension to change, but of course it can change if you want it to. You've got full control. Now, this is what I sent over here, the base bid, material cost, hours. These are the job cost categories. And then this is going to show the total amount by category. The only amount showing right now is material. Again, I just sent that over from extension. I also sent hours, but I haven't assigned any rates to the hours. I'm going to do that now. There's a folder for each of the job cost categories down at the bottom. So let's go to the labor folder here. This is my example list of rates on the left side. Of course, this is something you would set up as part of a template, your list of rates. Job to job, you select your rates. You want I want my foreman rate, my journeyman rate, I want my apprentice rate. And then, and of course, this is up to you. You might assign all of the hours to one rate or a blended rate. I'm using 3 different rates. You can assign hours to each rate here or percentage here, and I'll just do percentage. 25, 50, 25. This is the total labor cost for each rate and the hours assigned to them. Bottom right, that's the total labor cost for the job. All right, so that's going to show up automatically here on the top sheet. I've now got my material cost and labor cost covered. The rest of these folders are really just punch-ins. There's a folder here to punch in quoted material dollars. I got a quote on my fixtures, $5,000 total. Things like fixtures and switchgear, no matter how we're dealing with material pricing, we still have to get quotes on those items. So again, this is simply a place where we can insert the quotes as a lump sum rather than going back to extension or putting a price on each fixture. Now, this folder is for subcontractor expenses. I'm subbing out fire alarm. That's going to be $3,500. DJE is direct job expenses, things like permits and fees and fuel. Equipment, I need a bucket truck, 2,200. This folder shows an example bond table, and then this shows my tax rate. Of course, this is set up as part of my template. I could change that if need be. All right, coming back to the top sheet, I've got all my expenses covered. All of these amounts are combined on the right for the raw cost. Here's the tax amount. Here's the raw cost plus tax. So essentially, this is what I'm paying to do the job. This is what a good estimating program does for you. It helps you come up with this cost here. And then, of course, I can mark it up as much or as little as I want from there. And here's where you apply the markups. This is overhead percent, overhead dollars, profit percent, profit dollars. These two cells will work off of each other. Now, let's just say I want 10% overhead on the material. Since I'm marking up the first category, it does ask if I want to spread that to all. And I'll say yes. On the overhead side, I want 10% on everything. So again, it'll show the dollars next to the markup. That I put 10% overhead on each category. Again, it's showing the dollars next to the markup, and then totals on the right. So this is the total overhead. Profit, same thing. I want 12% profit on material. This time I'll say no. I want a little bit less profit on labor, a little bit more on quotes. So again, you do have full control here. The markups could also be preset as part of the template as well. Mine were not preset. I'm addressing it now. But if they were, if I had, like, let's just say I had by default it was set to 10 and 10, you could still of course change it job to job if you did set it up as a default. Again, totals on the right. This is the profit total. This is the overhead and profit combined. We'll give you a total return percent, a price, bonds at 0. This is my sell price without bond. All right, so if I want to use the bond table I showed you, there's a checkbox here. McCormick figures out the bond for me and adds it to the sell price. So that would be sell price with bond. Okay, so if you don't need it, just leave it unchecked. Last but not least, we do generate an automatic proposal. So let me show you what that looks like. Pretty neat. You know, it operates a lot like Word. In fact, you probably, if you look at like our ribbon in estimating and the takeoff, it's very reminiscent of like a Microsoft Word program. A lot of people like that about McCormick. It's familiar. But this here is where I'm going to select one of my proposal templates. So again, it's going to use, in terms of the designing and formatting customization capabilities, really anything you can do in Word, you can do here. In terms of the proposal designing, I'm going to open up one of my system templates. So you can of course have multiple proposal templates. This is one of my more detailed ones. It has a cover page. Pricing is going to populate on the second page, terms on the third. So you'll notice it's just a mixture of formatting, verbiage, and you know, and then these links to accept information from the job at McCormick. Now McCormick knows what job I'm in, 149 West Boston. It doesn't know which price or prices I want to bring to the proposal. So that's why the fields haven't populated yet. I have to, so once I select the template, I have to hit merge. And then here's where I can choose which price or prices. In this case, I'm just bringing in the base bid. But again, in some cases, I'm providing breakout pricing. That's why we have to hit the merge button here. So now everything populates where I want it. Job details, phone numbers, emails, addresses, you know, contacts, you know, prices, and you know, by the way, if something didn't come in, you know, you can still add it after the fact, you know, or came in wrong. You know, if you can still add to this specials, inclusions, exclusions, whatever you want, you know, prior to saving this or printing this. So, again, that's my my quick overview on McCormick, taking you through the 5-step process, plan to proposal. Again, there's a lot here. You know, just even if we were to dissect this and just really focus on, you know, on-screen takeoff capabilities, you know, I could probably spend 2 hours just showing features and shortcuts there. And then if I was just to show estimating and really detailed, you know, overview on the estimating side, I could spend a couple hours there as well. So, easily. So again, trying to give you all a high level overview today, and hopefully it generates some questions and maybe an interest in learning more. So with that being said, please give us a shout. If you call in to McCormick, you can ask for myself. Directly, just ask for Dylan Fisher. I'd be happy to answer questions for you. I'd be happy to set up a time to take you through a full online demonstration in which we would spend more time going through each of the 5 steps in more detail, drilling down on more functions and features. And then again, it's personalized. I've been with the company for 10 years. I understand that there's some people that they don't really know a whole lot about it. They haven't really been exposed to estimating takeoff software. Some have, so those are those are just 2 examples of different scenarios where the demonstration is going to look a lot different. So with that being said, we can really tailor it to your business, your needs. So phone number here is 800-444-4890. And my email address is dfisher@mccormicksys.com. Thank you all very much for your time today. I have not seen any questions pop up in here. So if you do have questions that, like after I disconnect here, I'll still receive those. So I'll still answer them by email. But again, feel free to call, email anytime. Thank you so much for your time today, and hope to hear from all of you soon.